This is the J. Scott Outdoors podcast on Western big game hunting and fishing, brought to you by GoHunt.com Insider. Research faster, hunt more. Go to GoHunt.com/insider and use the J. Scott promo code when signing up to receive a $50 Coues gift card. I'm your host, J. Scott, and I live and breathe hunting and fishing, spending half the year in the field experiencing God's creation. I hope you'll enjoy hearing about our adventures. Guys, welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today is part 2 of Adam Bronson and applying for big game tags for hunting in Utah. It's going to be a great episode. I've gotten great feedback on the first episode with Adam, and I want to thank him for being on. Make sure to check out his websites at bronsonoutfitting.com and epicoutdoors.com. I wanted to point a few things out to you guys. Really appreciate all the positive comments and emails that I get at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. People always text me and call and send emails and ask, what can the listeners do for me? Well, I can tell you what you guys can do. You can tell your friends about the podcast. This is a free podcast. We've got sponsors on the podcast, but to the listener, it's free. And tell your friends about the podcast, and that's probably the best thing that you can do, as well as listen to the podcast and download the podcast. But tell your friends. I really appreciate all your support and all the positive comments I get at my email at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. You guys can follow along our adventures. Dara and I have had jscottoutdoors.com for many years, probably pushing 10 years now. That's kind of the main website. Our Colburn and Scott, that's COLBURN, Colburn and Scott Outfitters.com. That portrays a bunch of our guiding adventures. The jscottoutdoors.com website is hunting, fishing, everything to do with the outdoors. So you can follow along there. I've got great support on Instagram at jscottoutdoors. Come find me. If you're on Instagram, come find me on Instagram, and my associate Dar at Dar, DARR, Colburn, COLBURN. We're also on Facebook. We have a YouTube channel, J. Scott Outdoors. Come find us on YouTube. I believe we've got 22 or 300 subscribers and a couple million views on a bunch of different videos, from elk videos, sheep hunting videos, fishing, Coues deer, mule deer, you name it, turkey. It's on there. And wanted to point a couple things out here. People have emailed asking about the Western Hunter promotion, and you'll hear an ad on every episode talking about Western Hunter and Elk Hunter magazines. All you have to do is go to westernhunter.net/JScott, and there'll be a box that says sign up to be entered to win a $1,500 Swarovski gift card. All you have to do is enter your email address. That's it. You enter your email address, you're entered into a drawing to win a $1,500 Swarovski gift card. That's westernhunter.net/JScott. Enter your email address and you'll be entered into the drawing. I want to thank all of the sponsors of this podcast. For sure, the title sponsor of this podcast, GoHunt.com Insider. Lorenzo and his crew over there have been fantastic to work with since about the inception of this podcast. And the Go Hunt Insider has recently released their Filtering 2.0, which is a phenomenal resource for people applying for hunts across the western United States. And the other thing that they've also launched is draw odds. And the draw odds have been phenomenal for me trying to look at my Utah applications and trying to assess which units I have the best chance to draw. And it is the most sophisticated draw odds menu that I have seen. And it's a phenomenal resource, so I encourage you guys to check it out. I'm going to be using it for the Colorado and New Mexico applications coming up here soon, and this part 2 episode with Adam Bronson is going to be phenomenal. I also want to thank our additional sponsors, the Outdoorsman's, Wilderness Athlete, Western Hunter and Elk Hunter magazines, Phone Scope, and Utah Hydrographics. I have heard from a bunch of the listeners, you guys, telling me how much you guys like the sponsors of the podcast, and I'd encourage you to support them and thank them for their support of this podcast. So, guys, let's get right to the episode with Adam Bronson, and this is part 2, and he's going to tell us more about how and when and to apply for Utah big game hunting applications. Utah Hydrographics is in the water transfer printing service, and they are open to whatever you can dream up. Choose from a wide range of camo patterns, designs, and colors. Whether it's guns, bows, tools, rifle stocks, vehicles, steering wheels, fenders, dashboards, paint guns, fishing rods, cups, tripods, watches, knife grips, helmets for a local sports team or for your motorcycle, picture frames, mailbox, animal skulls, you name it, they can probably do it. Utah Hydrographics loves taking things that are general looking and turns them into something that looks fantastic and eye-popping. Give them a call and see what they can do for you and receive up to a 10% discount by using the JScott16 promo code. Visit them at utahhydrographics.com or on Instagram at Utah Hydrographics. Whether you are interested in elk, deer, antelope, bighorn sheep, or moose, Western Hunter and Elk Hunter magazines will bring the adventure to your mailbox. These publications feature articles on the finest hunting gear, tips and tactics from experienced hunters, field judging trophies, glassing techniques, calling strategies, and much more. To become a more knowledgeable and skilled hunter, subscribe today. Go to westernhunter.net/jscott and enter your email address for a chance to win a $1,500 credit towards any Swarovski product. Adam, I want to talk to you about your friend and buddy and partner, Jason Carter. Talk about a mule deer killing machine. Talk to me a little bit about you and Jason's relationship and the partnership that you guys have and the love that you guys have for not only big mule deer, but big animals that you guys hunt.
Yeah, well, Jason and I have, we used to work together in a former employer, and, that's where we got to really know each other. Prior to me going to work for him and his dad, I didn't really know him. It wasn't, like we were childhood or high school friends. I really didn't know him. But, over the last 10 or 12 years, I've gotten to know him really, really well, and obviously consider him a great friend. And, we've been on a lot of great hunts together, both me with him and him with me. Those times that you get to spend together, everybody has hunting buddies. And I have a brother, too, that I'm very fortunate to have that's like that we get to spend a lot of great time with. Those guys are special in your life, and Jason's one of those guys for me. And he is. You described him right. When it comes to mule deer, I can't think of a person that's done more with the tags he's had, and predominantly all self-guided, than he has. And he puts an exorbitant amount of time into finding and researching areas and bucks to hunt. When he has jumped around and taken a tag in Arizona, when it came, and I was fortunate to be down there when we found and killed this 272-inch deer in Arizona, and he most recently drew an Idaho tag. Last year he killed a 220-inch buck there. But he's killed the majority of those deer he's killed here in Utah, his home state, and Nevada, which is the neighboring state right here. He's hunted areas and specific mountain ranges, and in some cases specific deer that he hunts year after year after year, and he's gotten to know some of these areas extremely well. And he's been to Colorado and killed big deer over there too, but he really has perfected ways of finding where big deer live and figuring out an inventory of what's living there, and then just saying, all right, that's the 1 or 2 deer I'm hunting. And he doesn't get distracted. He hunts incredibly hard and for a lot of days. With my guiding schedule, I haven't had that time to do that. I wish I will, and I back up. With my guiding schedule, I haven't had quite as much time recently to hunt big mule deer, and that's going to change as we've started our new business, Epic Outdoors and whatnot, the last few years, and that continued to gain momentum. I'll be able to guide less and hunt more for me. Jason hasn't got quite as distracted with sheep and things maybe like I have, and I wouldn't call that a distraction because that's another true love of mine. But he's really focused on deer, and he's killed some big elk, both in Utah, New Mexico, and some of these other states. But he's really keened in and focused on big mule deer, and that's really, that really shows. That's what allows him to get the results he has. Great friend, as far as a business partner. Nobody I'd rather be in business with. Building Epic Outdoors. We got a lot of big things planned for 2016 that we'll unveil later in the year. So, great guy and a great friend.
That's great stuff. A lot of people wonder how guys like yourself and guys like Jason consistently produce. And I would ask you the question of, is there one single thing that you can put your finger on that makes you guys successful at digging those big deer out, and finding those big deer and staying on them and getting them killed? Well, the first thing is somewhat obvious, but it's you got to be hunting where they're at in a unit or an area where they are. You can't waste your time in places that don't have them. And then the number one thing, and I would say Jason would probably say this if you asked him, is you've got to invest the time, and that's scouting and learning these deer, where they bed, where they live, year to year, and spend the time and hunt them. There's been sometimes he'll hunt 20, 25 days on a tag and eat it. And, nobody hears about those times, when they hear about or see the ones on Instagram or whatnot when he kills them, but they don't hear about the ones where he doesn't, and he put in just as much time and effort into them. So I would say the number one thing is it takes time. You can get lucky on tag. You can show up sometime, hunt the rut somewhere, and the rut takes care of it, and a big buck falls in your lap. And trust me, whether it's myself or Jason, you take those when they come, when you get a tag in a place like that. But I would dare say he would say the same thing. You manufacture your own success by product of how much time you put into it. And that's what I would say is the single biggest factor. Yeah, and I would agree with that as well. I think a lot of people that don't get to spend that time, a lot of times they put real successful hunters like yourself and Jason and others, up on a pedestal, and they say, oh, they're just such an unbelievable shot, and they have unbelievable glassing skills, and they're superhuman hunters and all of that, and a lot of that may be true. But a lot of it too is a time aspect, and you make mistakes, Jason make mistakes, I make mistakes. A lot of these great hunters that have a lot of success, they may not necessarily be the best shot in the world. They may not necessarily be the best glasser, the number one glasser in the world, but they have a combination of all those skills. But I think persistence and time and determination are all factors that make guys like yourselves good at what you do. We're all human and we all make mistakes, but it's those that are able to, stay on task, stay focused, and get pounded in the dirt day after day and keep coming back and not make excuses, but just keep on it and keep determined on a certain deer until you kill it. I mean, I'm sure there's stories where you've missed deer and he's missed deer that a lot of other people say would have made the shot. There's always circumstances that maybe you didn't come through, but the ability to not get off track and stay focused is a huge characteristic, I think, in guys that are successful.
Yeah, there's a lot of things when we're out there hunting that can go wrong, and it takes a lot of things to go right for it all to come together. And it's even magnified more if you're hunting with, say, a muzzleloader or a bow. Everything has to go right, and you can stalk the same deer 3, 4, 5, 6 times before finally maybe you get in position for a shot, and then, something still goes wrong. Puff of wind blows it. So, yeah, you've got to be able to shake it off and just say, this is the 1 or 2 deer I'm hunting, and I'm going to the end, and this is what I'm doing. A lot of people, I think, throw in the towel, and it's easy to get frustrated. Or, admittedly, some people maybe that don't have the ability to take as much time off in the fall and have a job and family and all that's a real world job, a 9-to-5 or whatever else, or a business they got to get back to. It's hard. I understand it, and I guess that's one fortunate thing that as we've broke off and decided to start our own business through Epic and Me Guide. I mean, when we answer to ourselves, that's allowing us to now have a little bit more latitude on, hey, hunting is important to us, and we're going to do it in the fall. So we set up whatever we want to do as a career and business around that. And obviously we understand that that's not everybody's situation, but it still goes back to time. You can get lucky on a tag here and there, but consistently don't count on getting lucky and killing big deer over and over and over.
For sure. For sure. Before we get into sheep, I wanted to clarify one thing with deer in regards to muzzleloader. The muzzleloader changes that you talked about, they apply to elk and all the species, correct? So now you can use a scoped muzzleloader, whereas before you couldn't. And tell me some of the ramifications, how that will affect deer hunting.
Yeah, that was a equipment regulation change. So it affects everything. If you antelope, deer, elk, sheep, everything. So yeah, it isn't unique to this specific limited entry hunt or that one. And, on some of the limited entry hunts, I think it's going to make people a little bit more effective and lethal with their muzzleloaders. They can be more precise with their shot. I hope it doesn't turn into a long-range lob fest with, muzzleloader hunters lobbing long-range stuff. They just aren't centerfire guns and carry as much energy at long ranges as centerfire guns do. I think it probably has the most potential impact on general season deer hunts. Again, we got 85 or 90,000 general season deer tags. Not all of those are muzzleloader tags, but I think that's where you could probably see the numbers add up more in terms of the impact on the resource. Again, limited entry, set number of tags on the Henrys, 10 deer tags. You're killing 10 deer with the older eggs and 10 deer with these. It just might make somebody might be able to stick it out for that number one buck versus go to his backup number 2 or 3 quite as early in the hunt. Same thing with elk. So I think it'll help people be more effective. I don't think it's going to hurt the resource that much on limited entry hunts or obviously once in a lifetime hunt that won't at all. But general season deer, I'm a little concerned because I think the muzzleloader hunt now, the deer are a little bit more out in the open. They're, late September, it's before the rifle hunt. I think they're going to have a lot higher success rates, and I just hope that's watched and factored in when they set quotas for that hunt in the future.
Sure. Let's take a quick break here, and then we're going to talk about sheep in Utah.
Tired of paying for opinionated hunting consultants and out-of-date information, spending hours reading rules and regulations, applying for tags, and not drawing? We were too. So here at GoHunt.com, we came up with a solution of our own. With the information of draw odds and filtering 2.0 in GoHunt Insider, you now have the most reliable hunting information on the market to date. Choose the type of hunt you want, when you want it, and we'll provide you with the rest. We'll also bring you plenty of other game-changing features you won't find anywhere else. So use someone you really trust to find your next hunt, yourself. Visit GoHunt.com/insider and join the movement.
Use the J. Scott promo code when signing up and receive a $50 KUIU gift card. Since 1982, the Outdoorsman's in Phoenix has made it their goal to provide the very best customer service combined with the latest and greatest optics and accessories in the business. Outdoorsman's is the leading designer and manufacturer of high-quality tripods and mounting accessories for any hunter's optical needs. Go to outdoorsmans.com or call 1-800-291-8065 and use the J. Scott promo code until February 28th to receive 10% off all Outdoorsman's packs and pack accessories. Okay, Adam, I want to go over applying for sheep in Utah and some of the different units and the ins and outs of sheep hunting. So can you walk me through sheep hunting in Utah?
Sure. If you're non-resident, you can actually apply for both desert sheep and the Rocky Mountain sheep and accumulate a point for each year. Us as residents have to pick one once-in-a-lifetime species to apply for and one limited entry species. And that's, to some extent, kept our resident odds better because most people pick something and stick with it until they draw and they don't accumulate points for everything else. Where 7 years ago, when non-residents, when everybody was forced to buy a hunting license at the time of application, I think they were scared non-residents were going to throw in the towel. And that's when they allowed non-residents to, hey, let's let them do every species so we'll keep them interested in our state and spend their license money and whatnot. And that's essentially really just diluted that. The once-in-a-lifetime tags in Utah were already very tough to get, and they're just tougher because now everybody's putting in for everything. And, we only issue 3 or 4 desert tags to non-residents and 3 or 4 Rocky Mountain tags to non-residents every year. That's not very many compared to a lot of the surrounding states. The odds are steep. We don't have quite as big a sheep as some other states either. The experiences are fantastic, and I've been fortunate enough to, take 8 or 10 hunters a year up here and get my sheep hunting fix with them since, most people only get to draw 1 or 2 of their own in their lifetime. The Zion and the Caparowitz unit are probably almost neck and neck in terms of quality rams in Utah right now. Definitely you're hunting 160 to 170 class rams with a chance for a slightly better chance for maybe something a little bit better than that. The San Rafael Desert unit in Little Estate is just an opportunity, a nice desert hunt. They just don't have the genetics or get as big a rams there. Our Rocky Mountain units in Utah right now, we're have a little bit of trepidation with what's going on in the Desolation Canyon area, specifically on the east side, the Oak Cliff South Rattlesnake unit. I would probably somewhat steer away from that unit right now. We hunted it last year, took a couple rams off it. One was a real big ram, but saw dramatically lower sheep numbers, almost no lambs, a few sick and coughing sheep showing up. They've done a survey here recently. And yeah, we've had an event go through there in the last year, and hopefully it's to the point where maybe bottoming out, but you never really know there. But that's on the Oak Cliff South, and that is open to non-residents. It's normally been probably the best unit in the state. I would apply there with caution. The age structure rams there is quite young from what we saw after we took the rams we did. So 9 Mile Range Creek is just the unit to the west there. It's probably safer. There's always been more sheep. There is more sheep still. We're all kind of holding our breath and seeing hopefully nothing spreads throughout that west side of the Green River. The Newfoundland Mountain up in the northern part of the state is technically California Bighorns. That's on the non-resident docket. Very, very easy hunt. Not big rams, 150 to maybe low 160 class California Bighorns. But anybody can hunt that. Anybody can do it without a guide, and, any physical limitation. We've had 14-year-olds and 87-year-olds draw that in the last several years, and they've all killed rams. So, great sheep hunts, just very, very steep drawing odds. For residents, we have a lot more options as well. And, if you're a resident and have a bunch of points or consider something, feel free to, go to BronsonOutfitting.com or get my number for the website or something like that and call me. I'll give you some input there.
Awesome. You guys had some great rams that you killed last year. Tell me about some of them.
Yeah, we took about 6 deserts and 2 Rockies here in Utah this last year. And I would say probably the one we'd hang our hat on is the ram of the year if we issued such a title, which we don't. It would probably be the Rocky we did kill on the Book Cliffs rattlesnake with the statewide sportsman tag holder, which is equivalent like to Arizona's raffle tag. But we took that ram in early November. We'd been hunting there for about a week, and just got a break finally that night. Been to a spot that I'd been 2 or 3 times, just rechecking some ewes, and caught this ram on the skyline coming off a big bluff, running a ewe down off the cliffs, and it didn't take long. He was, he's 37-inch plus long, 15.5-inch faces, and that's a really, really good ram for Utah. Mid upper 170s class ram, and we were very happy to kill that ram. And over the course of the next week or so, as we had the other hunter there, and saw or didn't see, I should say, what we were more accustomed to seeing on that unit, we even felt better about killing a ram like that in Utah, one of the best Rockies killed in the state. So killed a couple great deserts on the Zion, and some other units throughout southern Utah, and had some great hunters. To some extent, some of our units are very, steep, rugged backcountry backpacking units, and others aren't. And so to some extent, any limitations can get magnified depending on where you apply. And so that's why I'd just say if anybody's unsure, it's good to ask before, because some units definitely aren't cut out for everybody. But on the non-residents, the Zion, the Caparowitz, and San Rafael, there's portions within those units that anybody can hunt. So there's really no red warnings on any of those, nor are there with the Rocky hunt.
Okay. I want to ask you some questions about the other animals, the other big game animals, mountain goat, antelope, some of the other animals that you can apply for in Utah, and maybe just have you cover those briefly.
Yeah, antelope's kind of the more forgotten. We have a lot of average antelope in Utah. There's a few great bucks killed kind of sporadically around the state, but it's just an opportunity type hunt, fun hunt, as most antelope hunts are. They're not anything like an Arizona tag or anything like that. As far as mountain goats, they've never been better in Utah than they are now, and that's evidenced by the number of tags, the number of units that are just scattered all over. And most notably, the 2 units that have done incredibly well are the Beaver and the Ogden Willard Peak. And they have discontinued the nanny hunts on those for non-residents this year. That's primarily due to the fact that they've been removing goats from those units to transplant to Mount Dutton and the LaSalle's, which is a good thing. We'll open up those units here a few years down the road. So mountain goats, there's never been a better time to hunt mountain goats in terms of numbers and options. And we do kill really nice goats up here in Utah. Moose, kind of on the other scale of that. Most of the moose in Utah, as well as maybe southern Wyoming, have experienced some disease issues, and their numbers are down now, although I'm hearing from people in northern Utah where our moose are that they feel that trend's reversing. We do have good Shiras moose. The Wasatch or the North Slope are probably the best units for non-residents to consider, and we only have 2 or 3 options right now for non-residents you can put in for. That brings us to the bison. Utah is unique in that it's one of the few states that has a free-ranging, bison herd in it on public land, not on a ranch or something like that. And the bison were brought to the Henry Mountains in the 1940s from Yellowstone Park before any of the Yellowstone Park bison contracted brucellosis. So the Henry Mountains are continually tested every year through hunter-harvested animals as well as sampled by the division, and are one of the purest strains of bison in North America still, and genetically pure, free-ranging, and brucellosis free, and they are wild. It is not a drive around and pick which one you want hunt. It is a real deal, and anybody that wants to shoot a wild free-ranging bison, that's at it for $10. They have had some bison they've moved to the Book Cliffs over the last 5 or 6 years, those have taken, and now you're starting to see hunts up there. And so that's another unique animal. We don't have issues with our bison like some states do. I know even Arizona with Grand Canyon or Yellowstone Park factoring into the Wyoming or Montana hunts. So these are just wide open tracts of public land, and you're thrown back in the Wild West and hunting something that's kind of an icon of the American West. Very, very unique species and kind of a throwback to an old era.
Yeah, that's awesome. The Henry's buffalo, that just sounds like a very cool hunt.
Yeah, it is. We've accompanied hunters on that. We don't always do it, but generally because of our amount of time we spend there earlier hunting deer and scouting deer and on those hunts, you know, people have asked us to take them, and as our time allows, we do that. It's fun until you get one on the ground, and then the fun immediately is over.
They're big animals. I know we've hunted them some down in Mexico. There's a rancher down there that has them, and they brought them in over 40 years ago, and they're free-ranging buffalo. They're not high fenced. They just happen to have one big mountain there on a big giant ranch, and they just stay right there and, you know, run all over that mountain. And man, it's a great hunt until you get them on the ground, like you said, and they're giant animals for sure. I wanted to transition a little bit into conservation tags. Utah is unique in that there's conservation tags. So for people listening that say don't have points, or even if you're applying and have points, but you'd rather just purchase a tag, talk to me about conservation tags, maybe how they got started, and walk me through that process.
Yeah, Utah allocates approximately 5% of our big game tags. Well, they have them for turkey and cougar and bear too, but most people are more interested in the antlers and horned big game species, to nonprofit wildlife conservation groups such as the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Mule Deer Foundation, Sportsmen for Fish and Wildlife, Utah Safari Club International, Utah FNAWS, Utah Bowmans. I believe that's most of the groups that are awarded tags. And the whole idea behind these is to raise earmarked funds for projects, predominantly habitat related, but can be, in the case of sheep and goats, you know, transplant related and things like that. Research, a lot of our deer and elk collaring studies, our deer transplant studies, our urban deer capturing programs are going on in Salt Lake, and relocations are paid for by these conservation permit dollars. And, you know, there's people, seems like this is a pretty black and white topic. It seems like you're either for it or adamantly against it. And, you know, it's not really for me to argue that, although I, having been a biologist with the state of Utah for about 5 years prior to just pursuing other interests in my life, I know the benefits, you know, that this program gives. And now I serve as the president of Utah Foundation for North American Wild Sheep. And the sheep program in our state and almost every other state is entirely funded by the sale of our conservation permits. Sheep are expensive to manage. They die. They're susceptible. They're fragile animals. They just can't be left alone. And just when you think they're doing great, watch out, something's probably coming, and it usually does. And that pattern's not unique to Utah. That's all over the West. And so, being that they are so fragile, you know, these tags that are sold are 90% of that money is all earmarked and has to go back on the ground to benefit that species in Utah. That money can't be spent in other states. It has to stay in Utah. These groups that get the tags are all 501c3 charitable wildlife conservation organizations. They're allowed to keep 10% of the sale of each permit for marketing. And I would argue that's what they're in business to do. These groups are in business to market hunters, hold conventions, banquets, and this and that. And 10%, in my opinion, is more than fair, considering they probably generate, you know, that much or more in excess of what they would have sold if you just said you had a parking lot sell at the Division of Wildlife. They have them for every species. Obviously, there's a lot of people that say, well, it's just for the rich, and to some extent that that's true. They don't fall into everybody's price range, and that's a reality of it. But it's a way for somebody that perhaps doesn't have a lot of points, or has burned their points, or wants to, buy a hunt for a family member, or whatever, to look at attending one of these banquets and buying a permit. They're tax deductible for the people that buy them. A lot of business owners and that will be able to write them off. And Utah, if you take a poll from a lot of the western state Fish and Wildlife agencies, and I get this feedback from them as we visit with them, although they don't freely admit they wish they had the program and maybe some of the scrutiny that comes with it, not one of them isn't envious of the amount of dirt that Utah has been able to turn over the last 10 years as this watershed initiative and the mule deer restoration programs for mule deer winter range, pinyon juniper removal, all that have taken. But if you just drive throughout Utah, it's a totally different place on our winter ranges than it was 10 years ago because of the amount of money that's been able to use from conservation money and then matched with Pittman-Robertson or Forest Service or BLM money and doubled or tripled in value and go do large-scale thousands of acres of wildlife habitat projects. So I see the benefit of this program. I don't have a problem with the few getting an opportunity to do it because I believe that it's making it better for me and everybody else. I firmly believe that. I'm not just regurgitating something. I see the long-term benefits of our rangelands, of our habitat, and of the species that we're putting these money into. And, to get past the short-sightedness of, hey, Joe Blow shouldn't be able to buy this or that every year if he wants to. So, anyway.
I think there's the reality out there that our state agencies just don't have the funds to do all of the things that are necessary. And so, from an outsider looking at the way Utah does it, and from friends living in Utah and from what you've just told us, they've all been telling me that the habitat, all the projects that have been done because of this money is outstanding, and wildlife for many, many years to come in the future are going to be benefiting from that. And from an outsider looking in, there's so many people that are against hunting. There's so many people that we are fighting against. We need to band together and support each other and know that this money goes to good cause, and that the state agencies don't have the money and the resources to do this kind of stuff. And so this is a very logical way in my mind to supplement and help those habitat restorations and help these animals that we love to hunt.
I would agree. This day and age, we're very passionate about our ability and rights and privileges to go hunting. A lot of people don't share that, and whether it be through the wolf attacks or through ballot initiatives for bears and lions or whatever else that will come down the pipe, there's a lot of attacks on sportsmen and what we love and do, and hunters are the best conservationists there are. We've funded ourselves ever since Fish and Game agencies instituted licensing programs. We're the ones that pay for it all. This is just a little bit different way to do that, allowing some to pay a lot more than others would have to pay, and I'm fine with it. And I totally agree with the comment you made with, when it comes down to hunting, we all generally have the same goal. We want to see it continue for us and our kids and grandkids and all that, and be better off than even that it is now. Let's try not to be so polarizing and attacking of groups that maybe don't totally align with our vision in life and the way it should be done. We've got a lot of other fights to fight that are real and coming all the time.
Absolutely. Let's take a quick break here.
Have you guys heard about PhoneScope? PhoneScope is a privately held company that makes custom-molded, precisely engineered smartphone digiscoping adapters. Photographing wildlife has never been easier. Take digiscoping photos and videos from your smartphone and share them with your friends. PhoneScope stands behind their product with a 100% money-back guarantee. PhoneScope is the future of digiscoping. Get yours now. Use the JScott16 promo code and receive 10% discount on all purchases. Check them out at Phonescope, that's PHONESKOPE.com, or on Instagram at Phonescope. Wilderness Athlete is committed to improving the health and quality of life for the outdoor athlete by providing field-tested, scientifically validated nutrition and sports performance products. Check them out at wildernessathlete.com and use the JScott promo code to receive 10% off any order in February 2016.
I wanted to talk specifically, Adam, about these conservation tags. And for those people out there listening, if they're interested, they can contact Adam for more information. But kind of wanted to go through elk, sheep, deer, mountain goat, what have you, and kind of give me an idea of kind of rough price ranges, on each, say, archery elk, limited entry, muzzy, give me the breakdown of, are we talking, 50,000 a tag, or what are some of the rough ranges of price that most of these tags sell for?
Yeah, I was just bidding on some tags last night at one of these, and it varies. The tags are generally weapon specific. So when you're bidding on an archery only tag, it always is going to go generally cheaper than any weapon rifle hunt. But there's a lot of archery elk tags that you can pick up between 5,000 and 8,000 to hunt. I would call those mid-tier units. The other units, like a Southwest Desert tag sold last night for $10,500. I mean, that's a lot of money for most people, but it's within reason when you consider what landowner tags are that go in Nevada are going for $15,000 for elk tags. New Mexico for the better elk tags are going, $6,500, $8,500. Not too far out of the line, considering you can also write them off. Now, the early rifle hunts on, say, San Juan or Boulder, Beaver Hollow, these all you're looking at probably mid-20s to 30 or 40,000. They only have maybe one or two per unit. And whenever you only have one or two of something, they just go for what they go for. When somebody wants something that's the ability to buy it, they just they keep going. But a lot of, I'd say, the rifle elk tags for really good hunts, we can hunt 340 to 370 bulls can be picked up for, 10 to 18,000. And deer kind of goes along with what I said earlier. There's just not enough great deer units in Utah to spread everybody around. And since conservation permits are a product of 5% of whatever's issued in the public draw, there's not as many deer conservation tags. And, Paunsaugunt tags or, Oak Creek, you're looking at, $20,000. And that's a lot of money to hunt deer for a chance of the 200. I'll be the first to admit that. And I have reservations a lot of times in talking hunters into pursuing those because, frankly, there's, a lot of opportunities around the West that probably give as good a shot for spending less on the deer. But, it is what it is. The tags are going to sell. If you want to hunt Utah, that's the way to do it. Our desert tags, most every state gives a desert or Rocky Mountain statewide or governor tag, just one. Utah gives additional tags that are available for desert and Rocky Mountain sheep on a unit or a cluster of adjacent units. So instead of just having to buy a statewide desert for $65,000 to $85,000 at that auction, you might get a unit-wide tag for $40,000 to $50,000, which for a lot of people they're looking to complete they're taking all 4 North American Rams, and they don't want to go to Mexico. That's a slot range and price range that is very comparable, and it's a tax write-off for them and a very appealing tag for somebody who might want to look at killing just a nice representative desert sheep, 150 to 60-inch ram, and keeping it in the states and keeping the money in the state programs. Our Rockies generally go in that 65 to 80,000 range, similar to like the Wyoming 5 governor tags that they have. So with sheep, you just don't have as many of them, and in the sheep world, where it's the draw in every state, it's supply and demand really is what drives it. Antelope tags, there's a lot of good antelope tags you find for $1,500 to $2,500. Turkey tags, bears, cougars, whatever. Buffalo tags, goat tags. $15,000. Goat tags on some of the better units can be higher than that. But there's a few deals out there here and there that sometimes are had. If you have a slot range and a price range you're looking at, the comprehensive list and all the specific groups that get them is on the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources website, and the contact information for each group member or their website to call about the placement of those at their banquets is on that as well on the DWR Big Game page.
Awesome. That's great. I wanted you to cover one specific thing there that you said. Do you know specifically, as far as a tax write-off, how much of that tag, and maybe walk me through a practical application. Let's say if someone spends $20,000 on a tag, how much of that goes, how much of a write-off they get, or how that works?
And this is something I've had, a lot of accountants from clients that I've looked at acquiring these tags for call me on this, and I've referred them to people even within the Division of Wildlife, and the answer that I repeatedly get and is repeatedly been given, not just by me but by all these groups, is that the auction price is all tax deductible, because when you buy that, you still have to redeem the voucher for the actual permit to the state of Utah and pay the appropriate resident or non-resident license fee. And those established resident or non-resident license fees that are in print in the regulations are charged to thousands of hunters every year is the established market value of that permit. $1,500 for a sheep tag, $795 or $800, whatever it is, for a non-resident elk tag. So you still have to pay that to the state after you buy this voucher, opportunity, conservation permit. So that portion wouldn't be, because that's just the permit you're purchasing. But the auction price that you purchase is fully deductible, because that's above and beyond that established permit market value for the resident non-resident fee in Utah.
So just to be clear, if someone had to pay $100,000 in taxes and they paid $20,000 for whatever voucher, they could now take that $20,000 off of the $100,000 that they owe, and now they owe $80,000, and they also have a voucher for an elk or deer or whatever it is that they purchased for $20,000. Is that correct?
They can claim the full $20,000 as a charitable contribution on their taxes. Now, everybody's tax situation is different, so it never reduces your taxable liability by 100%, but it does reduce that, and so that's unique for everybody. It may reduce somebody's tax liability to zero, and it may reduce somebody's from by 30%. But no, it doesn't necessarily take that off. For those of you that do your taxes or talk to your CPA that does that, it'll go into the charitable contributions category, just like you donate into the Red Cross, people, any of those type of organizations, your church, your things like that. Sure. And so you'll be able to write it off as a charitable contribution, but it may not be a one-to-one. It usually never is a one-to-one ratio of reducing your tax liability. A lot of people have told me it'll reduce it 20 to 40%. So.
Gotcha. Understandable. Okay. Well, that's we've covered a lot of ground today, and I really appreciate you being on. For the listeners that would like to get a hold of Adam, I'll give him a chance here to let people know where they can find him. I enjoyed your Instagram page. It's at Adam_R_Bronson. Lot of great photos and trophies and live photos and all kinds of good stuff on there.
Yeah, that's one way. The other way is just BronsonOutfitting.com. If you go there and you're interested, all my email and phone numbers are on there. If it does pertain to something maybe outside of Utah, applications or getting a tag out somewhere out of the state, getting a hunt set up somewhere, you can reach me at my other business, Epic Outdoors. EpicOutdoors.com is the website to that. It's probably the easiest way to drive you to that, and my numbers and everything, email and all that are there. So, and we will be, for anybody going to the Western Hunting Conservation Expo, this next week. We'll be there, booth 2945, and it's a great show. Very good mix of the northern Canadian and Alaskan outfitters and the western big game outfitters. I really like this show. A lot of great friends. It's a good mix of everything there. So stop by and see us if you come up.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward. I'm going to be up there the first 2 days of the show, and I haven't been up to the expo before, so I'm anxious. I just got back from SCI. I went for a couple days there, and I'm anxious to get up there to Salt Lake, and I've heard great things about the show and a lot of the great mounts and everything to see there, and so that's exciting, and I just want to thank you for being on here and being a friend of the podcast, and I'm glad you were able to get a great deer, Coues deer, and look forward to seeing you up there. And until next time, buddy, God bless, and yeah, good luck with your applications here coming up in this upcoming application season.
You too, Jay. Thanks a lot.